Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the secrets hidden within corporate filings. And today we're looking at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. And let me tell you, there is a bit of shuffling in their boardroom and some interesting election results that we need to unpack. Before we dive in, if you love getting these raw, unfiltered looks at corporate happenings, make sure you are subscribed and join our growing community over on Discord. The link is in the description below. You'll find a ton of fellow finance enthusiasts ready to chat. Alright, so we're looking at a current report filed by the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. It is essentially an update on important events happening with the company. What caught our eye here is a change in their board of directors, specifically the election of new directors. These kinds of changes can signal shifts in strategy or a new direction for the company. So on the 12th of December of 2025, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, or the bank as they call it, declared 3 new directors elected. These folks will start their new roles on the 1st of January of 2026 and serve for a full 4 years, concluding at the end of 2029. Now, the board is made up of directors who represent the bank's members and some who are independent. The members themselves are the ones who elect these directors. This whole process is governed by some pretty specific rules laid out in the Federal Home Loan Bank Act of 1932 and by the Federal Housing Finance Agency, which is like the bank's main overseer. Let's talk about who these new directors are. We have David J. Rotatori. He is the president and chief executive officer of Ion Bank in Connecticut. He has been elected to represent Connecticut. Then there is William M. Parent, Chief Strategy Officer at Bankie SB in Massachusetts, and M. Susan Elliott, a director at Needham Bank, also in Massachusetts. So 2 new directors from Massachusetts, 2 new key leaders joining the bank's top decision-making body. Interestingly, for the Connecticut spot, David Rotatori was the only one nominated, so he was essentially automatically elected back in August, because no one else ran. This means for the Massachusetts positions, the election actually involved a vote from the members. Now, the bank hasn't yet decided which committees these newly elected directors will serve on in 2026. They'll be paid according to a policy that was actually disclosed in a previous filing back in October of 2025. A key point here is that these member directors usually are also officers or directors of the banks that are members of the Federal Home Loan Bank system. The bank is set up as a cooperative and it does business mainly with these member banks. These member banks have to own stock in the Federal Home Loan Bank to do certain business. So these directors who are also leaders at member banks might have their own banks receiving services from the Federal Home Loan Bank, for example, getting loans or credit. The rules state that these transactions must be at normal market rates, no better than what other members would get. They can also enter into agreements about interest rates with companies related to these member banks, again on regular market terms. And lastly, they can work with member banks or their related groups to provide affordable housing programs, but these arrangements also have to be on fair market terms. All these dealings are part of the bank's normal business and are subject to the same rules as transactions with any other member or outside company. Now let's talk about how this election actually happened. It was conducted online, so no physical meetings were needed. The results were finalized on the 12th of December 2025. The report also gives us the vote tally for the 2 director positions in Massachusetts. This is where we get some interesting numbers to look at. In Massachusetts, 88 member banks cast their votes. That represents about 43.35% of the eligible members in that state. The total number of votes that could have been cast for these 2 positions was a massive 10,871,792. Now let's look at the candidates for one of the Massachusetts seats. M. Susan Elliott received 1,551,563 votes and she was elected. For the other Massachusetts seat, William M. Parent received 1,511,093 votes and he was also elected. Looking at the other candidates for those seats, John A. Battaglia received 109,954 votes, James M. Dunphy got 383,538 votes. Margaret Meiser-Sayak received 133,783 votes, and Jafar Aturi received 107,601 votes. It is clear that William M. Parent and M. Susan Elliott had strong support from the voting members to secure their spots on the board. So what does this all mean? The Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston is undergoing a transition in its leadership with new directors coming in. This is a standard part of corporate governance, ensuring that the board is refreshed and potentially bringing in new perspectives. The fact that the election was competitive for the Massachusetts seats and that a significant number of members voted shows a healthy level of engagement from the banks that are part of this cooperative. The election process itself is quite regulated given the critical role these banks play in supporting housing finance. The clear election of M. Susan Elliott and William M. Parent suggests they resonated with the member banks' priorities. Now, looking at the numbers that we saw from the election results, this doesn't directly tell us about the financial health of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston itself, but it does speak to the governance structure and how decisions are made by its members. The bank itself is a federally chartered corporation, and its primary function is to support its member institutions primarily through providing liquidity and credit. The health of its members is indirectly a reflection of the bank's own health, so understanding who is elected to represent those members gives us some insight into the priorities and direction that the membership values. In my opinion, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston appears to be operating under strict regulatory guidelines and a well-defined election process. The election of directors is a crucial step to ensure that the bank continues to serve its mission of supporting its member institutions. The key takeaway here is the smooth transition and the engagement of its members in the election process. While we don't have direct financial performance numbers in this specific report, we've seen a clear indication of good governance in action. The bank's stability relies on strong leadership and member confidence, which this report seems to confirm. Alright, that is our breakdown of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston's latest report. What is your take on these elections and what they mean for the bank's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.